Hello, I'm Bill Hopkins. Tonight, we recognize organizations and individuals who advance our mission through communications, art, conservation, landscaping, writing, fieldwork, public service, and lifetime achievement in the field of Texas native plants. These are extraordinary people who have done amazing things that champion our mission. First, I will announce the winners of our contest, photography, newsletter, and video contest. Then I'll hand the mic over to Ricky Linux, who will announce our annual awards.
Earlier today, you probably saw, hopefully you were here and you saw all the different entries for our photography and video and newsletter contests. And so now what we're going to do is announce the winners of those. So we've been having these kind of contests ever since I've been involved in coming to symposiums. And they are all of these type of contests are really a form of storytelling contest, of competition to produce the best story that tells about native plants or tells about the Native Plant Society. Oh, somebody's coming up here to tell me something.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Oh,
you can keep going. I'm going to see if I.
Okay. I'm getting some assistance, but I can continue going. So yes, the symposium, the contests all tell stories about the value and importance of native plants and what it does to our society to help them. So, and these stories are told by various forms of technology through technologies like photography, video, and then the newsletters. You can think of them as a form of technology that involves words, which are symbols of sound. So all of these contests are constructions of sound and light that form a story, form our story, or what are the mission of our stories. So first of all, I want to go through the photography contests and tell you about the winners of those. And that contest is based upon the ecoregions. And as Michael pointed out, there are 12 ecoregions in Texas. And we have entries in most of those. We don't actually give an award to a winner unless we have at least 3 entries in each ecoregion. So here is the photography contest winners now. We have all the certificates. Our first award is for the Chihuahuan Desert ecoregion. Kit Sweeney for a photograph of Yucca elata. Hope I'm saying that correctly. So Kit Sweeney, is Kit Sweeney here? I guess not. Okay. Our next one is for the Cross Timbers ecoregion, which we can see here illustrated. And the winner of that is Holly Karen. Also not here. Okay, for the East Central, oh, wait a minute. She has the Edwards Plateau instead of East Central. The Edwards Plateau, the winner is Tom Lebsack for his photograph of Eustoma exaltatum. Thank you. Thank you. And next we have the Texas Blacklands Prairie ecoregion. And our winner there is Tony Stanzo for a photograph of Baptisia australis. we don't have a winner for the East Central Texas Plain. Oh, there it is. Sorry. They're out of order here. Okay, our winner for the East Central Texas Plains ecoregion is Winifred Simon for a photograph of Argamene albiflora. Hope I said that correctly. And then the Gulf Coast Prairies and Marshes. Our winner is Linda Kuhn for Rudbeckia hirta. It looks like there's some other animal there too. All right. And in our newsletter contest, we had a number of great entries, but by far the judges judged this one to be far and away the best. Becky Leal, editor of the newsletter for the Kerrville chapter. Natives on the Grow is the name of that newsletter. And then finally for the video contest, the winner is Megan Peoples for a video called The Ferris Cemetery, A Future as Well as a Past. You can watch that video at that URL at the bottom of the screen. So that's what I have. I did want to say that the Chihuahuan Deserts ecoregion was also awarded Kit Sweeney, Yucca Ilata was best in show for the entire contest. And finally, while I'm up here, I want to thank our judges who are listed here. And I also want to urge everyone to enter the contest, enter the photography contest, make some videos, write some stories for your chapter newsletter. Thank you.
Next up are our awards, and this is the highlight of tonight. State Board Awards begins with an award of appreciation. And this one, well, the light's not as good or my eyes are not as good as Bill, but a country boy can survive. So, State Board Award is going to be awarded to Gary Bowers for work that furthers our mission. Gary, please come up.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. My name is Gary Bowers. I'm part of the Williamson County chapter. First, I'd like to thank my chapter for nominating me for this award. So they read it off to me. It was a fantastic write-up. Really inflated my ego. So here I am. I'd also like to thank the state committee for selecting me for this. So thank you for that. But really what we've got are just a couple of slides to go through what we've done. And whoops, a little too fast. Super fast. So what we've been doing is doing some videos starting with the pandemic. We've done some garden tours, some walks, and just kind of have some photos here of how we do that. Really don't use a lot of equipment, just our cell phones. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide there. This is really the equipment that we had. On the left, we kind of started with my busted Google phone. And now we've upgraded slightly to using some older phone in order to get the audio to work correctly whenever somebody is doing a talk. All right, next one, please. And then we put that all on our YouTube site. So that was it.
Well, every chapter needs someone of the caliber of Gary. I've been fortunate to give a couple of presentations to the Williamson County chapter, and he is on spot with all this technology. In our chapter across timbers, we've got Bill Hopkins, so we're in good shape. The Native Star Award is going to be presented. It's a four-person award. Joining us online is Rick and Lisa Travis. You can see the other winners shown on your agenda. So, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate it. Glad to be with you all tonight. I hope you had a good dinner. I'm going to have a bagel when I'm done. So hope you guys had a good dinner tonight. Let me give you a little bit of an overview. If you go to the next slide, Kim, for me, please. I think Kim's handling my slides. Back up. You went too far. Back up. There you go. Just give you a quick overview of what was going on here and how this all developed. In 2015, 2016, the Army Corps of Engineers received a lot of federal funding to fix some of the ills around the Louisville Lake area in Denton County, Texas. So they went on a large project. They added about 40 acres of new native plantings and seedings in an area. They added 6 wetland cells near Louisville Lake in these areas that the diversity had really degraded over the last 20 or 30 years. And they also added 183 acres of zoned as you can't develop it. It's a protected land. So this has become a pretty large 250 acre preserve that is in East Denton County. So we started to walk it in 2018. My wife and I, Lisa, who will be on shortly, we were walking it and we noticed it was coming along well. The plants were coming up, the seeds were germinating, but we didn't see any milkweed there at the time. And we just kind of mentally noted it. We were brand new Texas Master Naturalists, we're members of the Blackwood Prairie chapter. And so we just mentally noted that. And then in our walks, as we began to learn our area as Master Naturalists, we found this 6-acre field that was owned by the city of Frisco that was loaded with milkweed, with Asclepias viridis, green milkweed, which is the most common milkweed that we have in the DFW area. So kind of putting 2 and 2 together, I went and talked to Carol Clark. She knows a little bit about milkweeds and butterflies, and I asked her if possibly the idea of transplanting some milkweeds would work. She says it can be done with care and with some knowledge. It can be done. You get pretty good survivability. So went to the chapter, went to our chapter leadership. They liked the idea of a project. So the chapter was on board. I went to the city of Frisco, asked them if we could harvest milkweeds off of this field, because there was probably a couple thousand milkweeds there. And they were good with it. As a matter of fact, their parks department agreed to help with it by supplying manpower and some equipment and some tools. So we got the chapter in place. We got the city in place, but we needed one more piece because this is a pretty big effort we were looking at. And I think it was Carol that referred me to Lindy Dodd, who is a Corps of Engineers research biologist with the Louisville Aquatic Ecosystem Research Facility, which is just below the Louisville Lake Dam. I did a little research, Googling on Lindy, and she had done a project of this type a couple of years prior. So she had some experience. So we contacted Lindy and we talked about what we wanted to do, and she was more than happy to help and to have her facility be available for her with that. That was critical for this. So moving through this, we came up with a date between all the entities in September. And that's the field you're looking at. And the folks in the middle are a couple, maybe you know these folks, maybe you don't. That's Dave Powell. He was one of our first presidents in our chapter, and Deb Canterbury, who was the current president, and Tom Shackelford on the right, who will be president about a year from this time this picture was taken. So we were up there digging, and we pulled up a lot of milkweed. We pulled up about 300 in this first session in September. You can see our bounty on the picture on the right. I had to put the picture of Dwayne with his massive milkweed that he took an hour and a half to dig up. Not the most productive time, but he was so happy and proud. I just had to include it on our slide. So let's move forward. Lindy had felt like she wanted to go ahead and have a second. Oh, went too far. Let's skip back. Go back one slide. There we go. So at our second harvest, we collected another 250 milkweeds, and the picture on the right is Lindy Dodd with Carol Clark. That's Lindy. Lindy was critical. She brought expertise, and she brought her greenhouse at Lerf, we were able to, once we harvested these milkweeds, to house them in her greenhouse, and she nurtured them until it was time for us to put them into the ground at the Stewart Creek wetlands a couple of months later. I do want to make one point. If you notice these buckets, we had almost as many milkweeds in these buckets as we did in our first bounty, but notice they're not sticking out the top. We had kind of got a little smarter. We learned to collect the younger, smaller milkweeds by the time we went did the second round. Their viability be better, and they were a heck of a lot better, easier to get up. That ground was hard. That was true Blackland Prairie clay we were working on. It's either rock when it's dry, or it's clay when it's wet. All right, next slide. Now this is the wetland in the on the left picture. You can see it. That's I think that was spring 2 years ago, and those are the berms along one of the wetland cells. And the lower inset shows us putting in. Actually, that's where we were planting some of the milkweeds. To tell you how we went about the planning for the planting, Lindy and I worked on that, and she frankly did most of the thinking on this. As I mentioned before, there were 6 cells that they had developed in the wetlands area. Well, we planted around 4 cells into the east of cell 4. So cell 1 and 2 is along the Hackberry Creek branch of this wetland preserve, and then cell 3 and 4 is along the Stewart Creek branch. And we also plant a lot of milkweeds to, as I mentioned, to the east or to the right of cell 4. And I'm really glad we did that because we did not get good viability from the cell 3 and 4 plantings. They washed away in a couple of large rainstorms over the next couple of years, but we got great viability in cells 1 and 2 and on that higher area to the east of cell 4. So if you go to our next slide, this is kind of the result of it. The wetlands continues to increase its diversity. We have a nice base set of green milkweed of green antelope horns in there with high survivability in most of the areas, and they have been propagating, and we have a lot of second and third generation milkweeds in the wetlands area now, and they've been getting a lot of customers. We were just there 3 or 4 days ago looking at some of the milkweeds and found several monarch caterpillars on the milkweeds that are now living in the area. So on behalf of the Blackland Prairie chapter of Texas Master Naturalists and myself and Lisa, you want to come over and say hi? She let me do all the talking, but she's here in the room. And this is Lisa.
Thank you. That's collaboration and conservation at the grassroots level. Good job. Our next award is the Digital Media Award, recognizing outstanding digital publications featuring Texas native plants. Please welcome Tom Lebsack.
Thank you, Ricky. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen of Native Plant Society of Texas. The honor of this award is something I really never expected, and it certainly was a big surprise. And I am just honored by the whole episode that I've gone through. Anyway, so my objectives in building this website was that it would be an educational site. I wanted to have quality plant photos with correct identifications and useful, accurate descriptions. And it's organized by species and name, which is kind of normal. It says 583 species there. That was as of a few days ago, but yesterday over at Marathon, I found a bunch more. So it's going to grow. The way the thing is organized is, again, conventional. Flowers by color. You click on the, for example, the yellow-orange thumbnail on the left, brings up a page of yellow-orange flowers. And let's say you wanted to look at a creosote bush, which is quite popular out here. And we'll go to the next slide. So you get the creosote bush page. There's a bunch of photos at the bottom, and what I try to do there is have the enough detail to describe the plant as well as I can. So that's the front of the flower, the back of the flower, the leaves, upside, downside, the fruit, the whole plant. Don't do seeds. And the little thumbnails then blow up to bigger pictures like this. At the top, on the right, I'm sorry, could you go back one? At the top on the right is, this is probably the hardest thing for me to do, is get good descriptions. I'm not a botanist, so I have to rely on a lot of resources. And I try to make these descriptions usable by non-botanists. And so to that end, I have a lot of links. So for botanical terms, so that people can click on a link and get a definition of that term. So now you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, next one. Thank you. So for example, the leaf shapes, then there's a whole thing about leaf shapes. These are some of the references I use. In fact, that's most of the references I use. And some of the people, some of the authors might even be in the room tonight. I'm very, very thankful for you writing those books. They're wonderful. And there's some websites too. So the people that do the websites deserve recognition as well. The next slide just shows that there's a progression, not a progression, but a cross-reference by family, by scientific, and by common name. And there's also a search function on the site. Anybody know where that picture on the right is from, or on the left rather? Where? Oh, well, you guys are good. Yeah, Caprock Canyons. So what started off as leisure activities for Linda, my wife, who's pictured there, and myself, we were hiking a lot, taking a lot of pictures. Finally got interested in taking as many pictures of plants as I could. She was complicit in this because I'd be taking plant pictures. She would be finding more plants in the immediate area. And we'd spend a couple hours out there taking plants in just one little area. So it worked out really well because she has a really good eye for plants. Now, you can take flower pictures with all kinds of cameras nowadays, and they're very good cameras and good equipment to take flower pictures. I try to do something, what I try to do is make sure that I eliminate as many variables as I can. So I always use a tripod. I use a big a macro lens as I can afford, and a camera with a lot of megapixels. And that allows me to get the beauty and the detail of these plants that is unbelievable to me and keeps me going in this hobby. So, getting quality close-up pictures is really what makes it fun for me and keeps me coming back. And the next one shows a few more. And my URL, texaswildbuds.com. I'm not thin-skinned at all, so please go on the website. And if anybody in here can find something wrong with that site, I'd be happy to, I'll give you credit when you tell me the correct IDs or fix my descriptions. And I would appreciate that very much, by the way. I want to thank you again for the honor, and hopefully you'll see this site grow a little bit more in the next year or so. Thank you.
Great photography. Great photography. Behind every good photographer is a spouse that keeps pushing them. I can tell you that. All right. The Benny Simpson Fellow Awards is limited by our membership to one, I believe, per 1,000, chosen by the members for service and work for the enrichment of the society at the state, regional, or chapter level. Our first recipient is Fred Zaxt. Flip that up around the machine. Hold easy point.
All right, just want to thank everybody Thank you for the award. Quick picture up here out of Fort Davis, out of Madera Canyon. But looking out in this group, there are two young ladies out here, Betsy Brochard and Joanne Mukherjee. And just so happens that, maybe 7, 8 years ago, myself and Sammy Childers nominated Joanne for the same award for the Benny Simpson. So I think she had something to do with this. So my thanks to both those lovely ladies. And so we're out here at Fort Davis. Early in our years, the chapter was having some issues. We did a native plant garden tour. We did that for about 4 years. That'd be 2009, 2013, out at our house doing a plant walk. Next picture, and then we're going to let it sit there. Next picture, typical things that chapters do. This is what make chapters go. Plant sales, work days, a community garden we're working at, Falls of the Colorado Museum. That's the bread and butter of the chapter. And really where I'm coming from tonight is I think there are about 10 chapters for the state that have less than 36 members, something like that sticking in my head. And there are tons of people just like myself or Joanne out in these chapters. Think of those people. You've been in the chapter for 10 years, 15 years, you look around. Yes, there are a bunch of new people, but think of that person that was your treasurer 15 years ago, and she did the plant sale 2 years ago. Think of those people, because those are the people we need to recognize for this award. The state does a great job of centering on people on the chapter level and the state level. And my push is there are a lot of people out there that deserve this award, probably more than I deserve it. So if you're sitting out there with your chapter and you're just barely hanging on, hey, all it takes is a write-up. Just write that person up and get in, nominate them, see what happens. And my hat's off to Native Plant Society. I remember in the state 2015, 16, always this talk of having an executive director. Look where Native Plant Society is. Wonderful, Meg. Thank you there. It's a great organization. We're going great places. Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much, sir. Yep.
Next recipient, Elsa Meyer.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, my first picture here is a Hexalectris spicata, crested coral root in Coryell County. It's kind of rare. Our first one we saw in Williamson County at a special called Field Trip. And I rushed over there on that Saturday or Sunday and everybody was laying on the floor taking pictures. The second one in the middle, that is, okay, is the second one in the middle was 2014, Amber DeCamp and I collecting basket flower seeds at the Burleson Prairie. If anybody has been Burleson Prairie, it's north of Temple, northeast. And the other one on the right is a black-capped vireo on my property, and that's why we have it under wildlife tax. Okay, my first official, no, they're not in the same order.
Going back. She's going back.
Oh.
No, she's going back.
Okay, yes, ma'am. This is my first official plant rescue, and that is at the widening of I-35 north of Temple with Marianne Everett, and we collected prairie hyacinths and prairie celestials. And Mickey Burleson is the one that started that too and called everybody to go and get them. Yes. The middle picture is displaying antelope horns, milkweeds for our plant sale. And down at the bottom, we were fortunate enough to get some little 4-inch trays, and we transplanted them and sold them at the plant sale too, antelope horns. Not easy to find in the nursery trade. There, the last picture on the right, I received or I applied for a Monarch Watch grant for milkweeds, and I got 400. I made a mistake in the numbers, and all of a sudden it showed 400. I said, I'm not going to change that. And I planted it on my 35 acres. There on the upper left, that is my buddy, Becky Sharp. She's down here. She came with me. It's the first time for her to go to a symposium. And this is the cleanup at the I-35 rest area in Salado, or just south of Salado. The bottom one is Clarence Reed. He's from the Austin chapter. Sometimes when I call, he has a chance and helps. And we work usually about 3 hours on one of the sites in Salado rest area. No.
You know what happened? I apologize. We had to go to a different computer and it wasn't corrected. I apologize.
I'm sorry. Okay, so where are we now? Okay. We don't have the, yes. Okay, our big helper, Maxie, planting the original I-35 Monarch way station with Kay Jenkins in Salado in 2017. So we have been doing this 5 years. And she does too. Kay Jenkins, myself, and Kwa from TechStot were cutting the ribbon last fall, opening the Monarch Highway with a new sign in the back. Down below, me weeding the Turk's cap at the rest area. Next. There's one of them is missing, I think. Well, I would just like to say real fast, we are going to continue plant rescues to keep the local ecotype growing. Check for sale signs and contact the seller or the construction company to get permission and sign the release of reliability. Share plans with the chapter members, presentations, highway cleanups, participants. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I was kind of shocked to get this award. Thank you all.
And our next recipient is joining us remotely, Rodney Barton. Bill, is Rodney on?
There I am. Can you hear me now?
You got it. Loud and clear.
Okay. Technical difficulties. It's always me. Well, I will also say I'm honored to receive this award. I know I'm in good company. There have been a lot of really fine people that have gotten this award, including the ones that are being presented tonight. I'll echo Fred in saying that most of what I've done has been the day-to-day stuff of our local chapter. If you'll go to the next slide, actually have a bit of a time frame here. I'm a longtime member. I joined way back in '99, but was not really very active. Made a few meetings. The plant sales were my favorite, so I showed up at a few plant sales and did some work there, but I couldn't really be very active until after I retired in 2013. One of my goals for my retirement was to spend more time with the native plants, and I think I got a little carried away because in a year I was on the board of Trinity Forks, and then the next year I was president, and again, I think I got a little carried away. I currently am programs chair. I'm giving that up. I've been the plant sale co-chairman since 2016. While I was president, we decided to make a subcommittee for the plant sale because the plant sale was taking up so much time in our board meetings that we just spun that off so that the people working the plant sale could handle most of the minor decisions on that. And another thing is I've done outreach at booths, taught NLCP classes. And so the basics, I can't really claim to have invented anything, started anything in general. When I became president, I told them I was going to serve by staying out of the way and letting them do what they were doing, because we've got a great group in Trinity Forks, and they had a good system going, and I didn't want to mess with it. So there you go. This is just a shot of one of our plant sales. They're run very well organized. I don't, as president and as plant sale chairman, I don't have to do any work as far as getting volunteers, because we've got a really great group, and we say we need you, and the people show up and they know what to do. Lead from behind in both of those roles. I have to acknowledge Kathy Saucier, which you all know, who you all know, because she really developed this system, and I became chairman so she could do her thing and play with the plants and let me take care of the sort of the business end of it, of getting volunteers and making sure the site's ready and all of those kinds of things. Again, and another show, another scene of our plant sales. One of the things we don't do very well in Trinity Forks is document our activities very well. We got to get better at that. And there's one more slide, I believe. This is one of our outreaches. This was a new city opening in Louisville, their Thrive Park. And that's really all I have to say, just that I'm honored. And again, I know I'm in good company. And I've been happy to do my thing for the Native Plant Society. There we go. And that's all I got. Thank you all.
All right. Our next recipient of the fellow is Carol Clark, and she has sent a small video.
Thank you.
Rodney, you can turn your camera off now, please.
Hopefully, it means I've connected with at least a few people doing just what I'm passionate about, urging others to plant and conserve native Texas plants and be mindful of the creatures that depend on them. There's nothing I enjoy more than getting people outside, either live or virtually, to show them the incredible diversity of beautiful, useful, quirky, and important Texas plants. Because I feel strongly about the importance of native plants and love what I do, in the past 12 months I've given 41 talks, led 32 nature walks, and had 18 extended consultations with people, including 5 city parks departments. I did 2 Master Naturalist chapter trainings, coached 2 film production companies, and advised Thank you for the departments. I did 2 Master Naturalist chapter trainings, coached 2 film production companies, and advised
Maybe we can put it on the website. I think you can see the caliber of the individuals that won the fellow award tonight. These are the movers and shakers. Recognize those in your chapter next year. Betsy Ferris and her volunteers passed along a note. The silent auction, based on your grateful donations of 154 items, has raised $2,670. Progress proceeds so far. Thank y'all. The Mary J. Laughlin and Eula Whitehouse Memorial Award for visual art that illustrates, interprets, or promotes native plants. Our recipient tonight, Ted Lee Eubanks. Let me give you this microphone. He's got a clip on one side.
I'm just going to talk into
Okay.
it. Okay. I have a pretty loud voice, so you will be able to hear me, I promise you. Thank you so much for this award. It's extraordinarily kind. I don't pretend to be a wildflower expert, and so I may be sort of out of my place here, but just quickly, particularly based on this morning's talk, I'll give you a couple of thoughts as we go through the slides. One is I'm a certified interpretive planner and have been for 35 years. And so I work around the world on interpretive plans and that sort of thing. And my goal is to reach the common man, to reach the general public. And that's really been my interest in my photography, is how in the world can I interest just the general public in the importance of these wildflowers and native plants. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it changes constantly. Right now, I'm also writing an interpretive plan for the last remaining slave quarters in Austin, and I've also just recently worked on the oldest Catholic cemetery in Austin. So my work is all over the planet, all over the subject matter, but it's always the same. It's always focused on the general public. If we're going to have independent growers succeeding, we need to educate independent buyers that buy from independent growers. So let's look through a few of the photographs. Oh, that's Juniper hair streak sitting there on Iringa, but keep going. Go to the next one. This is sort of the examples of the work I'm doing. I have over 3,000 images like this from Central Texas of native wildflowers. But my work, I will tell you, I believe is spiritual as much as it is scientific. I'm using the aesthetic of the flower, the beauty of the flower to connect with the public, not just the science of the flower. These are all various milkweeds, a lot of milkweed vines, which are my favorites, the Metalia. We fortunately have nice variety in here, and some endemics like Romeriana, which is one of my favorites. Next. I think some of you probably got a copy of this. Yes, that's my photograph on the front, which is this Gaillardia pucella. Thank you. It was luck. Don't give me the credit, give the Buckeye the credit for landing there at the right time. And then showing pollinators, some of which are also endemic. This little Shinia moth that only lives on that Gaillardia pucella, and some of the others that are here, and rare flowers such as that. So I'm trying to capture just, for example, to be able to explain how difficult it is for a plant, anything in the natural world, to create the color blue. Only 10% of their living organisms have blue, and there's a reason for that. And so I focused on some blue flowers to be able to tell that story, to engage people and perhaps get them to plant some of these in their yard. Next. Okay. Now we need 2 people.
Linda?
Oh, no, I have to do yellow passion flower, just because that reminds me, what was that Steven Spielberg, what was that space?
Lights, please, Bill.
Third Enchanted, what did Yeah, well, that looks like the machine that shows up at the end, I think. It's a glorious flower. But also reminds you there's a very, very, very tiny, small black bee that only feeds its larvae that pollen from this one flower. And it's those connections I'm interested in telling people as well. Well, let me show you where I'm going next. Oh, I should probably show you that. Blue. This is blue bowls, but that's, again, an idea of what I'm trying to do is to capture people's imagination about what's possible in the natural world and how that natural world then connects with them where they live.
I think it's his last.
So I'm going to build, do I still have more pictures?
Oh, okay.
Here are a few more, Ringo. These are the posters. So that's kind of been the next step. How do I take posters, put them in schools, put them on the walls, put it wherever I can find a place to put the posters to show people?
You're right.
Thank you. Places to show people. And now let's see what's next. This is what I'm using. And I will say this, no, I use no background. I use no tripod. If you're hiking and taking pictures, I don't want equipment. I just want a camera and a bunch of flashes and that's it. So I don't carry a lot of stuff around with me. Next. Now, thank you. Okay.
And he has one more exhibit to show with you, and he's going to describe it. Meg, for the people on Zoom, they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Meg will hold that in.
Thank you. This is going to be a wildflower wall. And what I've done is take Central Texas wildflowers. These are all natives. Take Central Texas wildflowers and show how wildflowers use every color in the visible spectrum. And I would have done ultraviolet, but you wouldn't have been able to see it. So I'm going to show you just, this is the rainbow flowers, and then to remember how the insects are relating to these colors and how these colors attract certain types of insects to certain flowers. This is, I don't know what size, this is I think 18 inches by 12 or something like that. The ultimate wall will be 30 feet. And because I want people to walk into Austin and San Antonio, wherever, and I want grandmother and grandfather and 3 small kids and the family to look at this and say, wow, I want that. And I want that in my yard. Okay, thank you very much for the award.
All right, thank you very much, Ted. Great photography. Our next award is the Shirley Lusk Memorial Award for collecting and preserving Texas native plants for public education, providing outstanding contributions of herbarium vouchers. You have to have at least 150 vouchers. The sponsor of this award is the son of Shirley Lusk. You know him, Alan Lusk. This year his daughter, Catherine, is with him. So welcome. And the winner of this year's Shirley D. Lusk Award is Casey Williams. Please come up.
Hello, testing. Can you all hear me?
Your slides.
So I do have a Eubanks poster hanging in my office, and I'm very, very proud of it. So this is absolutely an honor. I was conversing with Alan earlier about his mother, and I didn't know her personally, but I did know of her. So winning this award in her honor is definitely an honor on my part. So my most of my vouchers, most of my experience is in aquatic plants. And that's what I focus most of my collections on. A lot of people ask, well, why did you choose that group? And there are several reasons, but generally in Texas, aquatic plants are poorly collected and botanized. And one of the factoids that I like to give is that Ferdinand Lindheimer, the father of Texas botany, lived on the Comal River, one of the hot spots for aquatic plants. And he only collected one aquatic plant out of all of the plants, thousands of plants that he collected. We shouldn't blame him too much because they didn't have scuba gear and they didn't have snorkel equipment back then, didn't have fishing waders. But in general, historically, they're poorly collected from the early botanists. Biologically and ecologically speaking, aquatic plants are pretty difficult to identify because they don't always bloom, they don't always set seed, and they look completely different. One species can have multiple growth forms, so they're very hard to identify, and a lot of people just give up. But that doesn't daunt me. I continue to pursue the profession. So these are most of my collections. Generally focus around the coast, West Texas through North Texas. The gold stars are places where I've hidden money, so nobody follow those. But you can see I don't really get into the Panhandle, which is pretty far drive, but there are some great aquatic plant collections up there with the Playa Lakes. Next. So my first venture on collecting aquatic plants and even vouchering was when I was working as a research assistant for Texas State. And someone walked up to me and said, we're looking for, I was in the aquatic biology department, and a professor walked up to me and said, we're looking for some folks to help us map and collect aquatic plants along the San Marcos and Comal rivers. And I was like, yes, I'll do this. So they brought me on, and although the San Marcos is pretty well collected, not collected, but we know historically was grown there in the past. Actually, a lot of the plants had not been vouchered before. So some of the plants we had collected were there. These were first voucher collections that going to herbariums. I think we collected about 40 to 50 individual species along the San Marcos. So it's a great project. So thankfully, that project led into my full-time career, which now I have working with aquatic plants, mapping Texas wild rice on the San Marcos River, which is a federally endangered species. So this is my office most of the year. Next. And then this is my other office on the Comal River doing aquatic restoration. So I'm lucky to have turned something I taught myself into a career doing aquatic plant restoration, which no one does. This is a very unique situation. But besides my career, I still, in my free time, I still get out and mess with aquatic plants even more. So in 2002, Bill Carr then worked at the Nature Conservancy, and he had made a pretty thorough list of aquatic plants along Independence Creek. You've been to Independence Creek, you know, it's a pretty special place. And so I received permission to go out there and actually follow his list and voucher his list. So nothing had really been vouchered aquatic plant wise. So these are some of the vouchers. Flavaria is a really cool one. That's a pretty rare plant. And then Berula erecta. And these all went to Britt, and there were about 50 specimens, I think, after we collected everything. And I added a couple to the list after that. So again, this is all independent research, free time. I wasn't getting paid to do this, but it was definitely worth the time. That was over about 2 years. Next. And then recently, Michael Eason and I have been talking about doing some stuff in West Texas. And so we finally, last year and this year, there was the right moment with the rains we've been getting out here to begin looking at some of these plants that we thought were rare, hadn't really been vouchered, or we weren't really sure on the distribution. But so we're going out to some of these properties and trying to get better distribution and better vouchers. And it is absolutely an amazing feat because some of these places are just absolutely gorgeous. The issue with the West Texas plants, real quick, is that a lot of these places are dry most of the year. So these things sit there for a year or 2 years in a seed bank or a propagular bank. So their resiliency is just absolutely amazing. Okay, next. And then, so I have known Tiana Riemann at Britt since before Britt was at the new, what we call the new place now. They were downtown. And so I've been sending pretty much all my vouchers to Britt because I know her and I know they take care of their vouchers, and they're just great people to work with, and they're always welcoming. And so this is me visiting with Barry Helquist, who's a North American aquatic plant expert. And then if you live in Fort Worth or visit Britt, you all know Barney. He's a great guy. And Barry does a lot of work with Australian water lilies. And so that I've been talking to him about some of our Texas native water lilies, and he's a really good resource. So a lot of people ask, well, why voucher? What's the importance of putting a dried plant on a piece of paper? Number one, these vouchers last for decades, hundreds of years. I mean, Ferdinand Lindheimer's vouchers are still at UT and Britt, you know, over 100 years later. The more recent interesting situation I've come across is trying to figure out what a plant is, because you couldn't identify it by any of its characteristics. So you're trying to send it off to a lab and get it genetically identified. And it gets to the lab and it's a ball of mush. And thankfully, this particular plant I had vouchered, and Preston vouchered, and the researcher doing the DNA was like, well, can you send me a dried piece? I can run DNA off of that. So thankfully, I'd vouchered it, went back to my voucher, snipped off a piece of this dried plant, sent it in, and he's running DNA on it now. So hopefully, I'm hoping it's a new state record, but we don't know for sure. So that is really the main importance, the modern importance for vouchering and sending these plants to herbariums, especially with DNA. Okay, I think that's it. So while Kim plays the music and plays me off, I have a thank you list, because no man is an island. So I want to thank Dr. Robert Doyle, Tiana Riemann, Dr. David Limke, Mako Eason, Minette Marr, Dr. Nick Tippery, Dr. Don Less, Dr. Barry Helquist, Mom and Dad, and the various landowners that have allowed us to access their property. So thank you.
Our next recipient is going to be under the title of the Carol Abbott Memorial Award for popular writing about Texas native plants. The winners, Dexter Peacock, Forrest Smith, could not be with us tonight, but we do have some pictures. So let's see what we've got. Their book is a photographic guide to the vegetation of the Texas sand sheet, extreme South Texas, but very detailed, 200 plants on the South Texas sand sheet, which is a very unique area. It's a good book. You need, if you're interested in that area, they've got good descriptions, several photos which aid in seeing the plant at different times of the year. So just like we have regional books of the Trans-Pecos, now there's a new regional book for the South Texas. So congratulations to Dexter and Forrest. And our next recipient is going to be the Donovan Stewart Correll Memorial Award for scientific writings in the field of native flora of Texas, Elizabeth McGreevey. Come join us. Flip it on and hold it. Turn it around like that. Mm-hmm.
Can y'all hear me? So I'd like to start by thanking the Native Plant Society of Texas for this award. I'm truly honored. My book, here, first slide. Oh, there it is. My book is called Wanted Mountain Cedars, Dead and Alive, and it covers the mountain cedars that grow mostly in that grow mostly in the Texas Hill Country. Next slide. My journey took 25 years. And when I first moved to Austin 25 years ago, I almost immediately was told all these horrible things about mountain cedars, that that they cause erosion, they're allelopathic, they're not native, that, let's see, what else? You know, nothing eats them, that the hill country used to be a vast ocean of grass. All these things just kept coming, just piling up. And then I started working as the trail guide at the Wild Basin. So that's me 25 years ago. And I asked them, so, you know, why do we keep all the mountain cedars here? They're not native. And they said, they are native, and they're actually junipers that love to grow on limestone soils. Next slide. And so that got me intrigued as an ecologist. And I went to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center one night. Sally Wasowski was speaking. And afterwards I said, will you talk junipers with me? Because in her book, Native Texas Plants, she wrote how much she loved these trees and said how important they were. We went to the back garden and we talked junipers for 2 hours. And about a month later, someone that I was a member of the Austin chapter of the Native Plant Society. Someone there, I think it might have been Scott Lenhart, came up to me. He said, Elizabeth, you need to go check out this old growth juniper forest that's in Oak Hill. And I went and checked it out. I was like, wow, that changed everything, because I just thought that they were nuisance bushes, right? That started making me think a little bit more about them. Next slide. So for the next 2 decades, I researched and researched and researched. In fact, my book, 600 pages long, has 25 pages of references. Next slide. One of the fascinating things I found out is that 150 years ago, and even earlier, even in the 1700s, when the first explorers and settlers arrived, they highly valued these trees. So, and they even helped to jumpstart the hill country economy. Next slide. And landowners started calling me everywhere, from all over the hill country and beyond, saying, you have to come look at my mountain cedars. Next slide. And I was going around, that picture there on the right is Chuck Sexton and Blake Murden. We're going through the Balcones Canyonlands National Wildlife Refuge. You know, just going out there, the tree there I'm next to is on the Shield Ranch, has a 32-inch diameter trunk. It's a big mountain cedar, starting to realize that they were not just bushes. They did not just occur in canyons, that they also were occurring out in the open. Next slide. And then people just start calling me to make presentations. I gave presentation after presentation after presentation. Many presentations to Native Plant Society chapters throughout the hill country. But I will never forget my very, very first one I made, which was to the Austin chapter, the Austin Native Plant Society, 3.5 hours long. And not one person left. Their support early on was so valuable to me and really encouraged me to keep going. Next slide. So there I am giving one of my most recent things is doing workshops at the Blue Hole in Wimberley and being on Central Texas Gardener. Next slide. 25 years later, we had a pandemic. I could no longer go out swing dancing. I had to stay home. So what I do, I said, oh, I guess I'll finish my book. So I finished the book. It was a massive review of the literature that told the story of the mountain cedar in terms of politics, economy, the history since the 1700s, the ecology, how it fits into the ecology past, present, and future. And in my book, I show that the mountain cedars are not the cause of our problems, but rather part of the solution to accelerate where they spread as pioneering thickets to help accelerate our degraded karstlands where we have limestone. And I like to give a final thanks. At the very end of my book, editing help that I received from Bill Neiman, Pam Leinhard, and Dan Hosage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Next.
Our next recipient in the Nancy Benedict Memorial Award is coming to us remote. This award is recognizing an individual for a specific act of conservation or public service in the field of Texas native plants. So Martha Mullins, please join us. Can you hear us, Martha?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's yours. Take it and run.
All right. I want to thank the awards committee of NIPSOT for selecting me for this honor. And I want to thank Kim Conroe for helping me with my slides. I want to thank my husband for helping me with the Zoom, and Gordon Scruggs, the president of the North Central chapter, for nominating me. Next slide. Okay. Since I was selected because of the articles that I have written for the newsletter, mainly book reviews, plant articles, women botanists, and I'm a co-editor, I wanted to show what one of the front pages of our newsletter looks like. It's an outstanding newsletter, and I don't just say that because I'm the assistant editor and my husband's the editor, but because it was voted best newsletter by NIPSOT in 2019. And it's outstanding because of all of our member contributions. They're beautiful photographs of their plants in their garden and in our 10 demonstration gardens that we sponsor. To the right over here, I would suggest that if you're interested at all in any of these articles that we talk about, that you go to our website, txnativeplants.org, and check out the archives of the newsletters. To the right over here is one example out of 3 that we're proud of. My husband and I designed this bookmark. On one side, it's got photos of flowers and brief description. He did all the graphics and the photos. I did the text. On the other side is information about NIPSOT and our chapter, and gives the website and how people can join. Next slide. One of the reasons that I was nominated was for the book reviews. And my husband became editor in 2017. In 2018, I got the bright idea to write book reviews, and I've done over 40 book reviews on all kinds of things that have to do with native plants, like The Remarkable Plants of Texas, where the author gives all kinds of facts he claims that are not found anyplace else about 300 plants and folklore and such, and some books on things like gardening for butterflies. And I also wrote about history. The book in the middle, Wilderness Walkers, is about some of the early botanists who came across Texas in the early 1800s, and literally most of them walked because they couldn't afford to have horses, and even if they did, sometimes they were stolen. And you will recognize some of the names: River Shawn. Can you go back to that slide? River Shawn, Lindheimer, Erlander, Drummond. Thank you. Anyway, it's a very interesting book if you are interested in the male botanists. See, I didn't just concentrate on female ones. Next slide. All right, I've mostly done plant articles, at least one every month. And I usually concentrate on articles, on plants that are not common, that people don't commonly put in their gardens, like here, wild poinsettia and mistletoe and elbow bush and bull nettle, but still they're native plants and they have their place in the ecosystem. Next slide. All right, my articles on women botanists started in 2018, and I was inspired by Eula Whitehouse, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. Ellen Quinlan, is shown here. And Mary Sophie Young. And you can see what they look like out in the field collecting plants. Now, they came a little later than the male botanists that I was talking about a while ago in the early 1800s. These were in the later 1800s, but they had to put up with the same problems that the males did. There were a few more roads by the time they got out there, but they didn't, they had to put up with floods and all kinds of bad weather conditions, disease. Some of the botanists contracted malaria and cholera and things of that sort. The females, the problem was, can I go back to the other slide? The females not only had to put up with the same problems the males did, but they had to do it in long skirts, and they also had to overcome prejudice from their male counterparts. Next slide. What got me inspired for women botanists, and I eventually wrote over 26 articles, was when I read a short little article by a librarian from Britt about Eula Whitehouse, and after delving into some research about her, I was really intrigued by her abilities. She was mainly an artist, but she did do some books, and she did some collecting of plants. Most of her collections are in either Britt or SMU. Next slide. Okay, here are some more modern women botanists. Mary Jo Laughlin, she again was more of an artist, but she also authored this book, The ABCs of Texas Wildflowers. Lady Bird Johnson, of course, was instrumental in setting up the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, and a book of wildflowers across America. Giada had a field book on wildflowers and also one on butterfly gardening. The one to the right, Mary Curry, she did a book on wildflowers of north central Texas, and she does research at the LBJ grasslands and leads tours there. So the gamut of women botanists was from the 1800s on down to present day in my articles. Next slide. This, my husband and I are really proud of. It's a trifold brochure that we developed and designed. He did the photography and the graphics, and I did the text. Shows native plants, gives information about native plants used in your yard, but also a lot about the NIPSOT organization. And the bookmarks and this trifold brochure, both of those are handed out free of charge at events that our chapter participates in, like the spring and fall plant sales and anything else where we go and volunteer at events. Next slide. I would again like to thank the awards committee for this honor. I have spent most of my adult life in education of some form. I taught high school biology and environmental science for 30 years. Besides writing articles for the newsletter, my husband and I have given talks at various chapters of NIPSOT and Master Naturalists and Master Gardeners, and gardening clubs, and various nature type organizations. I also was a volunteer at Fort Worth Nature Center and helping develop prairie restoration, and at Britt for mounting plant specimens. So I'm willing to share my limited knowledge with just anybody that'll listen. Thank you. That's it.
Martha, go ahead and stop your video and we'll continue. Thank you very much. Our next recipient for the Lynn Lowry Memorial Award for horticultural achievement in the field of Texas native plants, Martin Simonton. As he comes up, I hope he'll introduce his special guest. Talk about your mom.
Yeah, first I want to thank my mother and stepfather for driving 900 miles from the
Hold it up.
Ozarks.
Say that again.
I want to thank my mother and stepfather for driving 900 miles from the Ozarks to be here.
A little bit higher.
I want to thank Michael Easton for the nomination. And I'm surprised to get this award because I've only been a member of the Native Plant Society for a year and a half. But we've only had a chapter for a year and a half. So Montgomery County is a very large county. I don't know exactly why we didn't have a chapter before, but immediately joined up.
A little higher, Martin.
So this first slide is self-explanatory. This is the same greenhouse Michael had earlier in his presentation. And unfortunately, right after we started this chapter, this greenhouse collapsed. And we started at 0, but by June, we had amassed about 70 species for the first plant cell. And we can go to the next slide.
Hold it just a little higher.
Oh, sorry. So this is this photo was taken about 4 miles from the nursery because this is in the Sam Houston National Forest. We've collected so far this year 12 native species of Asclepias, which some of these are going into demonstration gardens so that we can build a seed bank. Go to the next slide. And somehow tonight, this plant has gotten into 3 presentations. And I did not know it was in the South Texas sand chute, so that's interesting. So this is one we've collected, we're not growing yet, that we will have in spring. Next slide. So this group of kids, they are from the Society of American Foresters, obviously. All of them are about 19 or 20. They will be at our plant sale in 10 days. So it'd be nice to have some young faces there. What's behind them there is a sabal that's indigenous to the San Jacinto River and the mouth of Lake Creek. It's not unknown, but it's never been properly identified. It is probably a natural hybrid. These are one of the plants that we're growing in the nursery, which we intend to grow in plantation form because it takes a very long time to get them to the size. So growing them in containers is really time consuming. And plus we would like to establish a new population for the area, which is just north of the woodlands. It's going to be destroyed. Next slide. Now this was a fun trip. I left Montgomery. This was 5-6 years ago. Michael Eason left Alpine. We met up in Bracketville to find a species that had been lost to collections for nearly 100 years. So within 2 hours the next morning, we actually found a large population. And I believe he has found several populations deeper in South Texas since then. So next, okay, I think I spelled that wrong, but sanguinea. I think both of those are spelled wrong.
Yeah, you know what happened with the slideshow that he's correcting. It's a long story.
Well, that resolution turned out all right. Anyway, so we're not just growing uncommon plants, but we're growing common plants that aren't commonly in the nursery trade, which is one of them. And this echinacea This is really, to me, this is the most beautiful echinacea in my opinion. And so all of our plants that we collect all have provenance, every one of them. We don't grow any cultivars. We will pull from the nursery trade, but only where they have provenance. So I suppose that's why I'm getting this award. But I met Michael Eason probably 2007. And he worked for the Wildflower Center at the time. We went to work traveling tens of thousands of miles for years across the state of Texas for the Millennium Seed Bank Project, which is where I learned how to collect properly and create a seed bank. And then under his encouragement, I started the nursery up. Previously, I had worked for the Lowry Nursery, funny enough. I did not know Lynn Lowry. I worked for another guy that had bought it. And then eventually I bought the Lowry Nursery and ran it for 4 years. But I discovered I don't really like doing retail. So I let it go and then started another wholesale nursery in Montgomery. And I believe that's all.
Martin's going to have his photo taken, and anyone that drove 960 miles is welcome to join him. Mom and stepdad, come on over. While that photo is being taken, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Kim Conroe for putting the slides together. Might have been my job, but that's a little too much for me. So again, Kim has started that and continued to do it, and I appreciate it, Kim. And our next award, very prestigious, the Charles Leonard Weddle Memorial Award for Lifetime Achievement in the field of Texas native plants to our own Bill Hopkins. None of those 3,600 members do not know Bill Hopkins because of the emails he sends out, past president of the society, current president of the Cross Timbers chapter. So Bill, come on up.
See if I can put this on the way that you can hear me. I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay, good. After hearing all of his achievements and all these great things that so many other people have been up here talking about, I kind of feel like I'm on the wrong stage or something. I'm not sure I belong in this company. But it's still a great honor to have received this award. I really appreciate it. I was told I needed to have a dozen photographs, but when I thought about it, what kind of photographs would I have? So I didn't think you would really want 12 photographs of me. So I winnowed it down to a few. So it started out as a member about 25 years ago, I guess that is. Dallas chapter at first. Later on, I moved and joined the Cross Timbers chapter, which is in Palo Pinto County. Actually, I thought I was just having fun during all this time that I was doing these things. So when I moved to Palo Pinto County in 2007, I actually thought that I probably wouldn't be involved in the Native Plant Society after that because there wasn't a chapter there. So it was kind of a surprise then that I got a call and was invited to join the board as the vice president of administration. Earlier today, a couple of times I talked about storytelling and about how contests were about telling stories in the form of photography or writing or video or whatever. And when I looked at the things that I've done in the society, I think of it mostly as various forms of storytelling. For one thing, I was a state webmaster for 13 years from 2008 up through 2021. All telling stories about native plants and chronicling the activities of the society.
When I look back at the time that I served as president, I'm particularly proud of the fact that we started the I-35 Monarch Way Station project with a huge grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That's something that's going to be there for many years and that so many will be able to see. I'm also very proud of the work that we did to transform the NLCP, the Native Landscaping Certification Project, into a statewide program, something that thousands of people, members and non-members alike, can benefit from those classes and learn so much about native plants. We kept up with the times also, learned to use social media, started a large video program. If you haven't checked recently, we have about 100 videos on YouTube. We also adapted to the COVID pandemic, actually grew in size during that time period, learned Zoom. I'm really proud to have been a part of the Native Plant Society of Texas for the last 25 years, to watch it grow and help it along just a little. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. And I know that this is only the beginning, that there is greater things to come. We're going to become bigger and better than ever. Thank you.
There's an old saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And that's certainly true in Bill's case.
Okay. Which one with the lights up?
Yeah, lights up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have a President's Award to Kimber because she's done so much to move our program forward. That's okay. I can talk louder. It's all right. Let them talk. Anyway, yeah, so she created a wonderful bingo plant identification. Yes. And anyway, and a lot of chapters have had a lot of fun with this. So it's a very good thing. So next slide. Okay, oh yeah, and we have, made a connection with all of these people. And, this is what we need to be doing, is sharing our resources and our knowledge and supporting, people who are struggling to go through school. And, school is such a struggle now compared to when we were there. That's how it is, Anyway, but anyway, so this is great and we really appreciate it. And we appreciate the support of all the chapters in doing this, and it's one of the most important things that we can do. So anyway, next slide. Okay, and Kimber, okay, I think you can read this, huh? Or should I read it? Do you want me to read it? Yeah, okay. So Kimber, I'm honored to receive the President's Award. Thank you. All right, I'd like to thank Del Hood, Lynn Weber, and Michael Easton for their work with the Grants and Scholarship Committee in 2021. Thank you to Harry and Marilyn Kirk for endowing the new Dr. Alfred Richardson Scholarship, and to Kim Conroe for spearheading and coordinating the effort. Thank you to the generous individual and chapter donors who sponsored students or contributed to the Grants Scholarships Fund in 2021, to the State Board for allowing NPSOT to start awarding additional grants and scholarships each year, and to Kim Conroe and Sarah Torres for assisting me with the awards disbursement in 2021. I would also like to thank the Texas Master Naturalists who created so many NPSOT bingo games, and to Meg Inglis for coordinating the bingo project. And finally, thank you to the Executive Board for their tireless work and for supporting my own efforts. Best, Kimber. All right. Next slide. Yeah, chapter of the year. Uh-oh. No? Why? Yeah. Okay. Chapter of the year. Yeah. So, you know, we can only pick from the chapters who've submitted their chapter activity reports. So you can check for your chapter and ask, you know. And the thing is, if you didn't do anything, you just say a report like, I didn't do anything. Or if you did 3 things, you can just say, turn in a report, you did 3 things. You know, don't be worried about the form and all that. Just turn in what you did. It's all right. You can look at other chapters and you can see some of them that turn it in, you know, also didn't do a whole lot. That's how it is. Okay, but, all right now, the one chapter that I looked through the chapter activity reports and I picked the Pines and Prairies chapter. Because I had notes, but I lost them. Okay. Anyway, the thing is, the Pines and Prairies chapter has done so much. They had a 1-year celebration, and Meg was even able to go. And then I joined like as a secondary member, and they sent me such a great welcome and all. I felt like a real one. Anyway, and they're doing a lot, you know, to inspire their own members to reach out, and they're doing a lot to inspire their members to do conservation and all that. And I just thought that, you know, that even though they've only been here around for like maybe 2 years or something like that, they're doing a great job. And anyway, so that is our chapter of the year for this year. And
the quilts, they get to take the quilt.
oh yeah, they need to take the quilt. Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. Yes. Okay, good. All right. I think though that this is the last thing that we are doing. So we are done. Is that true? What?
In your banquet folder are the songs, the lyrics.
Oh, we have to sing.
Sing our song. It's a tradition that we're starting this year. That the youngest attending member speaks up in our chapter on our society song. So that would be Kate. Kate. Oh boy.
Come on up here.
I would like to spurn the person who nominated me for this. Of course I do. That doesn't mean I can sing it, but I'll try. Oh boy. I guess it as ready as I'll ever be.
The native plants of Texas are the only plants for me. They grow high up in the mountains, cross the plains down to the sea. From Red River to the Rio Grande, Big Bend to the Gulf of Mexico. The native plants of Texas are the best plants you will know. Blue bonnets on the roadsides, burst into blooms of blue and bold. Indian blankets, Mexican hats, turn that blue to red and gold. There's a rainbow of colors in biodiversity, and the native plants of Texas are the best for you and me.
Oh, really? Could have been getting a raise for this, Michael.
The native plants of Texas are the only plants for me. They grow high up in the mountains, cross the plains and down the sea. From Red River to the Rio Grande, Big Bend to the Gulf of Mexico. The native plants of Texas are the best plants you will know. The native plants of Texas are the only plants I'll grow.
So why don't you say, everybody, good night. That Hayden, you made our day. Woohoo! Yeah. All right, we are done for the night. You are welcome to go. Thank you so much. If you, we appreciate you coming. Gosh, that was exciting.